Back from more IC, thank you very much. This is a hot and heavy review day while I'm sitting here working. People send me these albums. This is a pretty great record. David Axelrod was a very unusual figure. In a way he wasn't. He's sort of like the Creed Taylors of the 60s, even like the Phil Spectors, the guys behind the scenes. He has a lot of Wikipedia stuff. Did about 7 or 8 albums. There's also a sort of a sense of the late 60s, early 70s. I always think the 1960s isn't really over till 1975 because that spirit is still there. There's a lot of money in the record industry, and so there's a lot of room for experimentation. I was over at John DeVore's the other day and I heard an amazing Cannonball Adderley record. It has like kind of a artistic cover with like pieces of paper with tacky stuck on it. That album was amazing. There was this willingness to explore big ideas and big themes. Some of his records explored environmentalism, you know, environmental catastrophe. I think he had one album called Dead Earth or something. He was very prescient, I think is the word. And this record, you know, it's the early 70s, so there are tunes where they're looking for a hit. There are covers of Don't Worry About a Thing and You're So Vain. But the stuff that is really kind of remarkable, that almost, it's very orchestral, it's almost sort of blaxploitation in spots. There's definitely touches of Herbie Hancock on this record. The lineup of the musicians are incredible. Julian Cannonball Adderley's on a few tracks. George Duke is throughout this whole thing, just laying down these beautiful electric piano lines. Also a lot of unusual Moog synthesizer. It's all done very, very tastefully. Moog synthesizer by Rudy Copeland. Guitar Johnny Watson is also all over the record, playing his really funky guitar licks. People like Oscar Brashear, Snooky Young, George Bohannon on trombones, William Green on saxophones, Jay Migliore on tenor sax, George Duke on piano, electric piano, ARP synthesizer, Ray Copeland on Moog, Billy Fender, Don Peake, Johnny Guitar Watson guitars, Roy McCurdy on drums. Roy McCurdy is sort of a shadow figure to me throughout the 60s and 70s. I know he played a lot with Nancy Wilson. Roy McCurdy is on this Cannonball Adderley album, I heard. I'll get the name of it and put it in the notes over at John DeVore's. It was just a mind blower, that record. And this is sort of similar to that. Large scale, epic, but also very kind of light on its feet. With McCurdy's just a profoundly hip drummer from the period. King Erickson on congas. King Erickson was part of the incredible bongo band, who along with Jim Gordon created these giant break beats that were sampled all over hip hop. The vocalists include Billy Barnum, Olga James, Gwen Owens, Stephanie Spruill. Now when the stuff is bad, it's really pretty crazy. There's a track called Mucho Chupar, and it's like, it just sounds like the soundtrack to a porno movie. It's like moans and groans and it sounds just like a porno soundtrack. I was there, I remember, not the porno soundtracks, but what they sounded like in the 70s. And but even with that, there's all this incredible funk happening. There are other, the Axelrod compositions are the greatest. They do a cover of Cast Your Fate to Win by Vince Guaraldi, which is pretty good. And the cover of You're So Vain is like the throwaway track on the whole record. They were looking for a hit. It's just really kind of cheesy, you know, the Carly Simon song. But then My Family by Axelrod, It Ain't For You by Axelrod, Everything Counts. These are big productions with strings and brass, and it all really, really works. The sound quality is fantastic on this record. Former all analog mastering to the original taste by Kevin Gray, Coherent Audio, pressed on 180 gram vinyl RTI. This is a Jazz Dispensary Top Shelf series. This really sounds fantastic on my crazy hi-fi. So I would definitely recommend this album if you're into blaxploitation, if you're into 70s orchestration, if you're just into something a little different. The whole time it's very accessible, it's very funky, just a great record. You know, you very infrequently see any of his records anywhere. I never run into them, but it's very much a heavy axe. You know, heavy was a very common phrase in the 70s. Axe meant your guitar, it didn't mean an axe. But anyway, it's a great record. I don't know what it costs for, but what it cost, not what it costs for. Anyway, great record. David Axelrod, Heavy Axe. It gets 5 stars from the Jazz Vinyl audiophile.